The Philippine Army's Armor Pambato division is about to have this new set of armored personnel carrier, purchased by the Department of National Defense from Israel's Elbit Systems Limited and produced in Brazil by Iveco Latin America to fit by the requirements and specifications set by the Land Service Branch for its armored personnel carrier acquisition project. The deliveries from the late 2023 until mid-2024 will help boost the number of armored vehicles serving the Philippine military for its mandated operations. The delivery of the VBTP-MR Guarani armored personnel carriers to the Philippine Army may help augment its existing armored vehicles, most notably the V150 Cadillac Gauge Commando and GKN Simba APCs, both of which are 4x4 wheeled armored personnel carriers that are still serving the Land Service Branch to this day. And like the upgraded M113s that the Philippine Armed Forces already have, these new armored vehicles may come with a remote-controlled weapon system, RCWS, turret installed on board. This development comes as Germany's export body lifted the embargo enforced on German components that prevent Brazil from delivering the VBTP-MR Guarani armored personnel carriers to the Philippine Army, enabling Elbit Systems Limited to comply to the delivery schedule requirements set for this acquisition project and eventually fulfill its obligations to the Philippine Army without the risk of paying penalties and enforcing undesired decisions that risk the firm's arms relations with the Philippine military. And ultimately, the reports for the Philippines to get 86 more copies of the VBTP-MR Guarani armored personnel carriers to meet the so-called 114 copies required have a very remote possibility of even taking place, as the priorities of the leadership within the Department of National Defense and the Armed Forces of the Philippines are very clear that external defense is an utmost priority, with air defense systems, shore-launched anti-ship missile systems, fighter aircraft, and warships being first on the list. Overall, the delivery of the VBTP-MR Guarani 6x6 armored personnel carriers to the Philippine Army is now on its way, complete with additional armored plates and systems upgrade that Elbit Systems Limited has provided to these units that may help improve not only the numbers and the firepower that these armored vehicles will have to the personnel within the Philippine Armed Forces, but also in real-time communications, which is vital to the overall outcome for the troops on the ground, victorious in securing this nation. The Armored Personnel Carrier Acquisition Project of the Philippine Army, amounting to PHP 2,265,200,000.00 that calls for the purchase of 28 VBTP-MR Guarani armored personnel carriers, is just one of many deals that the Philippine Army has with Elbit Systems Limited of Israel, the other being the Sabra tanks and Atmos 2000 self-propelled howitzer platforms, both of which packs firepower that the Philippine Army needs for a counterinsurgency scenario. According to the reports across multiple outlets, the 28 units ordered by the Philippine Army counts as just a portion of this government-to-government, G2G, package between the Philippine and Israeli governments, whereby the project aims to have an overall number purchased VBTP-MR Guarani 6x6 armored personnel carriers to at least 114 units, sufficiently replacing older wheeled armored personnel carriers within the Armor Pambato division such as the GKN Simba and V150 Cadillac Gauge Commando APCs. In the recent news at the time this has published, a first batch of the VBTP-MR Guarani armored personnel carriers are apparently on its way to the Philippines, with projected delivery dates being at mid-December 2023 as reported by the Brazilian outlet, with the remaining units under the contract slated for delivery at the first and second half of the year 2024. Complete with Elbit installed systems and specifications that are currently not available with the Brazilian variants of the VBTP-MR Guarani 6x6 armored personnel carrier.